Welcome friends. In this video we are going to look at Biology Paper 2 for the year 2009. Our focus will be on section A, of which we have question 1. Figure 1.1 shows some cells taken from a vascular tissue of a plant. Now the vascular tissue comes from a vascular system, and the vascular system is responsible for the transportation of materials within a plant. And this vascular system, it talks about structures like a xylem, we have a phloem, we have companion cells, we have cambium. So these are structures that we are expected to find in a vascular system. Now, we are not only supposed to know the names, we also have to look at the structure, because for the given question here, the answers depends on how well do you know this structure. So the biology, if you are studying biology, please make sure you also study the structures for a particular organ or for a particular system. And structures are very important, because if you look at most of the questions that comes in biology depends on structures. So we have cell X, cell Y, and cell Z. Then question A, identify the cells X and Y and structures Z. So cell X is a companion cell, and this companion cell is similar to a muscle cell. So we have a companion cell here. Then for cell Y, so how can we identify cell Y? Based on the structure and also the presence of this companion cell. This is phloem. So phloem has companion cell. It has an associate of companion cell. Then structure Z, we have sieve pores. Now these small triangle, rectangles, these are sieve plates, in case you are given that a question next time. So we have the sieve plates, then in between the two sieve plates we have the structure Z, which is the one we are calling as sieve pores. We move on to question B. What are the functions of the cells labeled? The first one, X we said is a companion cell. So the function is it provides energy. Why do we need energy? Energy is defined as the ability to do work. What is the work of the phloem? The phloem transports the manufactured food by the process of translocation. Now for this manufactured food to be transported, there should be some energy that must be there. So this is now the companion cell should comes in to provide that energy. Okay, we move on to Roman number 2. For Roman number 2, we want the function of cell Y. So Y is phloem. So phloem, number 1, it's a vessel. Then this vessel transports the manufactured food from the leaves to all parts of the body. Now, why do we say from the leaves? Because from the leaves is the area of manufacturing, or this is where the process of photosynthesis takes place. So that is the function of phloem. Okay, then the other thing is sometimes you may be given a question of determining the process. What do we call this process? That involves the transportation of manufactured food. So this process is called translocation. Okay, we move on to Roman number 3. What structure in the human body performs a similar function as structure Y? What did we say structure Y does? It is a vessel in which food passes. So here we can just say blood vessels. We know that blood vessels transports blood, then the blood also transports the food from one part to another part. Like if you look at after digestion, the food must first pass through the liver for inspection. So after the inspection is done, then the transportation of this digested food must pass through the blood vessels via blood to all parts of the body. Then we move on to question C. Question C, we are given what two conditions are necessary for osmosis to take place. Osmosis is just the process by which water molecules moves from the region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration through selective permeable membrane. Now, conditions, there should be some conditions that must be there for this process to be successful. So the first one, temperature. Then even if we are told to, let's give as many as we can. Also osmotic pressure, which is we can just say pressure. Then surface area. Surface area is how thick the membrane where these materials, these water molecules are passing through. So surface area. Then concentration gradient. At least we'll be able to remember some of these if questions were asked. And I think for me, when it comes to school studies, it's the importance of studying is not about your examinations. I think for me is knowing the school stuff is what is important. So if some of these doesn't appear in your final paper, it's okay as long as you know. So that's what I can share for you. Okay, so we have question 2. Under question 2 we have been given 2a, figure 2.1 shows the amount of lactic acid in the blood. So have before, during, and after a heavy exercise. Okay, so now let's go to our first question. A1, what was the level of lactic acid in the blood before the exercise? So before the exercise, so this is the region representing before the exercise. So let's go down here. So this line is what is indicating the level of lactic acid. Now the region before exercise is this one, the one that I've shaded in blue. So we want to find the number at this point, because before the exercise this was the level. So what is the number at this point? Now from here is 0, then here is what? 20. So we need to look at the dimensions of the smaller boxes. So from 0 up to 20 there are 10 boxes. So each small boxes represents a 2. Now so say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 14, this is 16. So the answer is, we are told 16 milligrams. So 16 milligrams. Then Roman number 2, how much lactic acid was produced at 20 minutes after the exercise? 20 minutes. So we are going in the x-axis. So we'll move at the 20 minutes, then we'll move vertically. So let's move. So until we touch the given curve. So after we touch this point, then we are going to turn 90 degrees to the left. So the number at which we are going to reach the y-axis is our final answer, which is 80 milligrams. So for this question, you just have to use the graph given. Then for Roman number 3, how long did it take for the lactic acid to reach its highest level after the exercise had begun? So after the exercise had begun. So okay, so the period of exercise, so this point is the beginning of the exercise. Then this point, this is the highest point indicating the accumulation of lactic acid. So we have the highest point because it didn't exceed this number. Now the question is how long? So one time, so it's somewhere here. So if here is 0 and we have a 10 here, so we can say this is in between 0 and this, so we'll say this is 5 minutes. So the beginning of the exercise was 5 minutes. Then if we move down here, this is where the highest level of lactic acid was achieved. So 20, the average, if we add 20 plus 30 is 50, divided by 2 is 25. So here this is 25. So from 5 up to 25, how long? So if you find the difference between 25 and 5, we get 20 minutes. So that is our final answer there. Okay, we move on to question B1. Under question B1, what is the reason for the buildup of lactic acid in the body? So the buildup of lactic acid comes from the process of respiration. Now respiration is defined, or can be defined as the release of energy from food. Now there are two types of respiration that we are expected to have. We have aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Under aerobic respiration, we are given oxygen, or the breaking down of glucose to give us energy must be in the presence of oxygen. Now this aerobic respiration produces enough or a lot of energy that is required for the body to do its work. And why do we need energy? We define energy area as the ability to do work. So each cell has a specific work it does. For that cell to do that work, energy must be there. So that energy the cells uses to do the work comes from the process of respiration. Now, what happens if someone is doing a vigorous work? So what happens is that the aerobic respiration, the intake of oxygen is not enough for the aerobic respiration to help someone to survive during that particular time. So now, how can you survive if, for example, you don't have enough oxygen to carry out the process of aerobic respiration? So anaerobic respiration now kicks in to make sure that a person survives in the absence of oxygen. Now the anaerobic respiration is not like the aerobic respiration, because under anaerobic respiration we have the lactic acid. Not only that, the amount of energy produced by the anaerobic respiration is small. At least we have shared one or two. Now the answer for Roman number 1 is just anaerobic respiration. So what is the reason for the build-up? So it's because of anaerobic respiration. Then 2, what are the effects of the buildup of this lactic acid on the person? So the lactic acid can cause muscle fatigue. And muscle soreness. So that is what we can say. Then for Roman number 3, compare the products of the process taking place during the heavy exercise to that which takes place in the yeast. Okay, so we are comparing and we are saying during the heavy exercise we have anaerobic respiration who kicks in. Then what happens during the yeast cell? So here we'll also look at anaerobic respiration. Now for us, since we are comparing, we just want to look at the similarity, because these two types of anaerobic respiration, the one that occurs in human beings and in yeast cells, we may have some similarity or similarities, and we also have some differences, but our focus is in. So say both human being and yeast cells carry out anaerobic respiration to produce a small amount of energy. Okay, so that is the similarity. So the similarity is more about the production of the small amount of energy. Then for the difference is that in human beings we have lactic acid, while in yeast cells we may have production of alcohol, which is fermentation. Like if you look at the production of alcohol, we need to add yeast. So that is what we can consider here. We move on to question C. Suggest 2 uses of the process identified in B1. So in B1, we said it's anaerobic respiration. So 2 uses. Now there are so many. So let's give as many as we can. So number 1, we can say to produce energy. Then the second one, we can say for baking. Respiration is used for baking. Then for brewing, making alcohol is also used. Then apart from that, we can also look at this one for sewage treatment. Even when making drugs like in pharmaceuticals, this is also used. We move on to question 3. Complete the table 3.1 by filling in the blank spaces. So the first column, we have hormones, second source action. So for Roman number 1, we are looking at the ovary, then it produces a certain hormones, then whose action is to rebuild the lining of the uterus. So we have estrogen here. Then Roman number 2, we have thyroxine, thyroid gland, then the function of this hormone to control the basal metabolic rate, which is, if you want, you can also say to control growth. The answer will still be okay. So if you look at an endocrine system, we are looking at a system that does a certain coordination. Now this system, the message is done via hormones. Now under endocrine system, we are expected at least to have the master gland, which is the pituitary gland. then the hormones produced by the pituitary gland. After, we have the thyroid gland, which is located on the neck region. We have the pancreas. Under the pancreas can work as an exocrine, where it produces pancreatic juice, and endocrine, where it produces the insulin and glucagon. Then we have adrenal gland, which produces the hormone for number 3, adrenaline. Not only adrenaline, it also produces noradrenaline. Then we also have the gonads. The gonads has to do with the sex. So we have the testes under male, then we have the ovary under the female. Then the function for this one is just to prepare. So to prepare the body for the emergence. Okay, for the example, I'm sure you may encounter a situation where, or maybe a belief. So like, what happens if someone, maybe there is a burial, that feeling that people encounter whenever they visit a burial site. So because of the information that we have earlier, so we may think we may encounter ghosts or stuff like that in the burial sites. So if, let's say, someone is alone and is passing through a region or a place where he or she thinks there may be danger, so these hormones will be produced. Then some of the characteristics that we have is that you may have that increased heart rate. So the reason why there is that, the heart will start pumping fast to make sure that the blood that contains glucose is supplied to all parts of the body. Why do we need that? So we need energy in case if what we are thinking is true. If that happens, what happens? How do I survive? If truly I see a ghost, how do I survive? I need maybe to run. So for me to run, I need energy. So in such beliefs, so that's the reason why we are saying this adrenaline comes in. That's why we are saying whenever someone is very afraid, or sometimes even over excitement is also dangerous, this hormone must comes in to make sure that you succeed in through that moment. Then for question B, what happens to the hormone after completing their action in targeted organs? So a targeted organ is an organ where the hormone has its influence. So if the hormone is done, so say hormones must be degraded, or you say destroyed by the liver, and so after being destroyed, it is made into some proteins. So the liver is very important. So we move on to question C. Under question C, state 2 ways in which hormones and nerve impulses differ in controlling. So we are not expected to give answers like hormones are produced by this. No, the question is about controlling. So the other sensitivity of biology is that sometimes you may fail biology, not because you didn't study, no, because you didn't understand the question fully. So make sure as you are going through biology, or as you are answering your biology paper, please make sure you understand the question fully. So this question is all about controlling. We are not interested where they are produced now. So the first one, hormones controls slow process, while impulses controls fast process. So that is the first one. So that is the first one. Now for the second one, in terms of controlling, let me see if I can make you understand. So I want to use this one as an example. Let's look at if on a radio station there is a certain program on news. So there are a lot of people that can tune in, or there's a lot of people that can listen to that program at once. So you get a picture. At once, a lot of people can tune into a certain station and listen to that news. Now, let's say you want to tell someone news through the phone. With the phone, you can only call one person at a time. You can't call, even if it's a conference call, you can't make 2 calls at once. First, you have to make the first call. Then from there, you put that one on hold, you make another call. Now for the call, a call is only made for one person. So this is similar to the difference, the second difference. Hormones may control more than one processes, but a nerve impulse has only one targeted organ. So that's what I wanted to share with you on this one. So we can say hormones may have more than one targeted organ. Wow. Nerve impulse has only one targeted organ. If you look at if the response is the withdrawing of a leg from a hot object, the motor neuron that will be sent after interpretation must only go to the muscles. That's all. So that is the key point. If the action has to do with the blinking, it has to be the blinking only. So that is what I wanted to share with you on this one. Now for question 4, figure 4.1 and figure 4.2 shows pyramids of food relations among organisms in a forest and a lake. So all these can be considered as you can just call them as the ecosystem, because we can see that life is possible for a forest and a lake. Now, Roman number 1, identify the organism found in trophic level in figure 4.1. So the first part here, you just have to know that these will always be producers. So say producer. Now for this producer, we just have to give a certain name. For this producer, it's a plant. Okay, so let's call this one as a maize plant. Then for Roman number 2, what would happen if the population of insects in figure 4.1 reduced? So if this one reduced, what happens? So the population of frogs would decrease. Why? Because the population where they are supposed to feed on has decreased. So there is no enough energy for frogs. So say the population of frogs would decrease, whereas the population of trophic air would increase. Let's hope you are able to grasp the information. For this one would increase. Why? Because the population of insects which is supposed to feed on this one, they have decreased. So this one, there is the population of A will increase because there is nothing to feed on them. Okay, we move on to question B1. What is the ultimate source of energy for both pyramids? So as long as it's ultimate source of energy, the answer is always the sun. Then you explain the difference in energy between trophic levels as you go up the pyramid. So we'll say as you go up the pyramid, energy decreases. This is because energy is lost at each trophic level. So only about 10% energy is transferred to the next level. So the way it is that if, let's say for example, we have a pyramid of energy, if here there is 1000 kilojoules of energy, so only 10% will be transferred to the fish. So what is the 10% of this 1000? If you do some math, so we are expecting to have 100 will be transferred. Then the 10% of 100 is 10 kilojoules. The 10% of this is 1. Now what happens to the 90%? So the 90% is lost through the processes such as respiration, reproduction, locomotion. So all those processes that we carry out loses energy. So that's the reason behind that. Then for question C, we have traces of DDT applied on a nearby farm. We are washed by rain into the lake and were taken up by the auger in figure 4.2. Then why was there more DDT in organisms in the fourth trophic level of figure 4.2 I mean, than in those in the first trophic level? So DDT, we are looking at a medicine that is used to control pests. They are used by the farmers. Now this word of DDT, it's a long word. If you want to pronounce this word is pronounced as a diphenyl trichloroethane. So now the importance of this one, we are saying it is used to control pests. Now for DDT, the simplest explanation that I can give you is that the reason why in higher trophic levels there is a much concentration of this compared in low trophic levels is that it's different from energy. We said for energy, as you move up, the energy reduces, but for DDT or for these chemicals, as you move up, their concentration increases. Because of what? Because of the process of biomagnification. So what happens to this biomagnification? So let me see if I can give you a short explanation or answer that can help us to understand it. So we can say the highest concentration will be seen say in the top trophic level. Now let's give a short reason. So say because the consumers at the successive trophic level consume, so say consume more than the previous level to fulfill the energy requirement. So this is what happens. So it's all about as this pyramid is moving up, the concentration, the amount of these chemicals that is, let's say, consumed by the producer will be much higher than the one on top here. So the one on top will consume more. Then here will consume, in fact, will consume more than the one in between here. So this is what happens. So whenever you move up in terms of chemicals, their concentration increases, but in terms of energy reduces. And because of the consumers at the successive trophic levels consume more than the previous level. So that's the reason we can give. Then we move on to question 5a. Hemophilia is an example of a sex-linked inherited disease arising from blood disorder. What is a sex-linked characteristics? So say these are characteristics carried by genes found on the sex chromosomes. If you look at sex, we are looking at X because the Y does not carry these genes. Then for Roman number 2, explain why males are more likely to suffer from sex-linked diseases than females. So say, because males have a genotype of XY. The Y chromosome does not carry these characteristics. So therefore, because for situation of carrier we need to have like this. So one capital letter, one small letter is the carrier. Now since there is only one X, so we can see that there is no chance of carrier. So it's either the person is okay or normal. So because of the presence of only one X chromosomes, is the reason why there is a more chance for a man to get this particular disease. So we're saying because males have a genotypes of XY, the Y chromosomes does not carry these characteristics. Okay, we move on to the last question. Color blindness is another sex-linked disease. Using a genetic diagram, show the chances of having a colorblind child from a couple made up of normal male parents and a carrier female. So say male, female. Okay, so we begin with the parental phenotype. So for the man, normal. For the woman, we are told carrier. So for the phenotype, you just have to state the condition. Then we'll move on to parental genotype. So for the since the man is normal, you use XY, then here we put a capital letter. So we only put a capital letter. Then for the carrier, for woman, one will be a capital letter, the other one a small letter. Parental gametes. Gametes, we just have to split these. Then here we have random fertilization. So this is a normal baby girl, a carrier baby girl, a normal baby boy, then a patient baby boy. So say genotype of F1. So this is what we can share. Then if the question is the chance, if we want to find the chance to have a son who is sick is 1/4 times 100%, which is giving us 25%. So let's hope you have learned one or two. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.